what I keep seeing is tools are moving so fast, but revenue teams especially don't move fast on their own. The growth has to be like managed and led.
Is how do you sift through the many choices that are out there and really help direct our clients to, hey, what is most likely the best tool set, the best way to use AI? How do I choose? And frankly, what happens many times is, let me not choose. Let me just keep on doing things the way I've always done them.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AI with Bry, the show where we're cutting through the noise and helping leaders learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I'm Brian Denstead, your host for today, and you can think of me as your Chief AI Officer helping you find your path. Each week, we're bringing someone along who's navigating this AI shift from the inside, not just observing it, but actually living it with their work and their teams. Today, I am really excited to welcome Rich Makeover to the show. Rich is bringing something to this conversation that I think genuinely is underrepresented in the AI discussions we've had. The discussions that I've had that I'm in on a regular basis, it's the revenue side of the house. And I don't just mean like sales tools. I mean the full picture of how AI is changing the way companies grow, scale, and actually hit their numbers. So a brief intro on Rich. He is a fractional chief revenue officer and managing partner at TechCXO, where he works with companies across consumer goods, beauty, jewelry, technology, and building scalable revenue engines. He's got a deep experience working with KPMG, Avon, and Citizens Watch Group. And today he's embedded inside growth stage and PE-backed companies, helping them move from founder intuition into repeatable investor-grade execution. He also is a certified executive coach, a D1 Penn State lacrosse captain, and someone who's spent decades turning what he learned in the locker room into how high-performing teams operate in business. Welcome to the show, Rich. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. I'm excited to be with you.
I love, we've had some great conversations at some of the partner meetings and other things in the past. And I think that what I keep seeing is tools are moving so fast, but revenue teams especially don't move fast on their own. The growth has to be like managed and led. And I know you're thinking carefully about that intersection and how to structure clarity and the right systems to determine what actually performs or just looks busy. So hit me with the learning piece of this whole thing. Like, what have you learned lately about AI and how are you leveraging some of these tools?
Yeah.
Hit me with the inside scoop as a CRO.
Yeah, I think it's, there's so much noise out there that, one of the roles that we play as fractional leaders or chief revenue officers is how do you sift through the many choices that are out there and really help direct our clients to, hey, what is most likely the best tool set, the best way to use AI for the future. I think you do have quite a bit of analysis by paralysis by analysis going on out there in terms of how do I choose? And frankly, what happens many times is, let me not choose. Let me just keep on doing things the way I've always done them, which is really not the way we're going to help these companies ramp their business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, does that match like what you're seeing across the board, or is this specific to certain types of companies?
Well, for sure, it's happening when I see in founder-led businesses that are, they really don't know how to scale, and so it's scary. How do we make this decision? It's scary, and it could be in multiple categories: manufacturing, product, technology, services, beauty. I see it very commonly with founder-led businesses. I think a little bit less so when you're a portfolio company of a more sophisticated private equity company, where they're going to come in and kind of tell you, and we act as their fractional operating partners many times, where we'll go in and help them, make that decision because of the uncertainty that we see from the founders and the original leadership teams.
Yeah, I love it. I know I say this a lot on the show. I think leaders assume that their teams are further along with AI than they actually are. Is that what you're running into?
Oh, for sure. It's really sporadic. You could see somebody who is way better at using it than you thought. And then frankly, you could see people that just, I'm not touching this. I'm afraid of it. I'm not touching it. Or let me do the research for just one more week.
Yeah.
And in the world, that I'm in, speed is king. So
Yeah.
that putting that off for that one more week is a problem. So
Yeah.
I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah, for sure.
I know you write some amazing articles on LinkedIn. I think one of the ones I read recently was around this idea of like accidental success versus repeatable systems.
Yeah.
Like, how do you see AI helping people like learn what repeatability looks like, especially on the revenue side?
Yeah, I think a good example would be, and by the way, thank you for the plug there, because I really do, I do think this is such a challenge, AI and beyond, is how do you build repeatable process? How do you spec in rather than hope for? You see that all the time. So with AI, though, I see it really on the front end. On the front end of the revenue journey, right? So let's look at it after demand gen. You're going to get a lead come in. Really, the whole action around your CRM and how do you sift and sort and plan for the future in a more advanced manner. That's the area where, without it being plugged in, if you hope that somebody uses the tool, not spec it into, here is the playbook that we have written for that stage, that's where I see a lot of problems. Best example I could give is, I use personally, and my clients use RGA, which is a tool that our partner Matt always says has built. It's fantastic, and we use that very much in our pre-meeting. The clients I have that say let's do it, but don't spec it into the process, the usage rates are way down. But when we spec it into the process of the playbook itself, I see usage up. I see then the usability of that tool is tremendous in terms of a better meeting, a better follow-up, a faster proposal, et cetera.
Yeah. And that's the revenue growth agent, right?
Correct. A revenue growth agent. Yeah. Yep. RGA, I call it. But it's been terrific for us.
Are there some other tools that people should learn about that you're using on a regular basis? If you don't want to give away too much secret sauce here, but
I don't mind giving away everything. To me, it's to me, I view this as we're a community, so it's no. I'll tell you exactly what I'm seeing. With the CRMs themselves, there's certainly, if you're in HubSpot, for example, there's certainly a lot of improvements that are being embedded into HubSpot. As an example, I would definitely say, for those founder-led businesses that are unsure about the different CRMs that are out there, I would really urge you to look at, when you're making that consideration, picking a CRM that has some AI already built into it. And also the belief, do some research, and we can help you do the research on, where do we see the future for that particular platform? So I'm using HubSpot as an example. Many people view that as a basic starting point, but we find it very, very helpful. The AI componentry that's already built within it.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. I mean, because it's about getting the right data. It's right helping figure out the right actions through the funnels and stuff like that. But the bigger theme I want to point out is like there's a ton of fractional executives out there. And so I don't have any problem giving away my tools either, because like it's all about execution. Like you need me to come in and help me make sure the processes are there and the execution is happening day to day, and really push in on that. So I'm glad to tell you all the tools that I'm using on a regular basis.
You do.
You need to implement them the right way. Yeah,
no, totally. And Brian, I think that's really true, and certainly for our whole firm, but within the community, because at the end of the day, I'm not building the tools. I'm just helping. I'm just helping my clients decide which ones to use and how to use them. So to me, and it's ever evolving. It's my job. It's our job to stay on top of that. We have lunch and learns ourselves to learn more about different tools. We've got staff meetings that are coming up where we share amongst ourselves as to hey, what are you using now? And obviously, every day there's something different, and we too have to stay just ahead of that so we can give our clients the best advice possible.
I love it. I think there's some great tips there to check out from the learn segment. It's as we pivot over to this leverage section, anybody can say we use AI to sell more, right? But like, what does it actually look like when it's working inside a real revenue organization? How are you seeing the leverage of AI impact it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, one of them I'll repeat back was, what's the quality of the preparation that's done? What's the speed in which that preparation is done? How many more meetings can you have with high quality conversations because you use AI tools to either help you refine your target, help you refine your message, understand where the pain points are for your prospect, and how do you marry those pain points with what you do really well? So number one, you really are able to measure at the traditional KPIs in the CRM, your calls, your call volumes, all the way through to your close rates. For sure, you can see the benefits of AI in terms of preparation. The second thing I would say is, if done well, all that really does extend beyond the front end all the way through to proposal. So when you really think about my life is about demand gen come in, sales takes over, managed through to a close, and then hand off to customer success. And we underpin it by rev ops, right? So, when you look at those different parts, the meeting prepper we've talked about already, proposals. How do you use AI to help you refine your bespoke proposal? The boilerplates are gone. Right? You can't.
Yeah, for sure.
They're gone. So how do you do a bespoke proposal that really makes a difference to the person you just talked to? How do you have AI helping you with your handoffs, ultimately to customer success and account management? All of those are areas where you can for myself as a fractional leader, install, implement, and then measure. They all can be done throughout the actual execution of leverage through the process.
Yeah. I know you've written about like the first 100 days post PE, post PE close really, and how that's where value actually gets created or lost, right? So I'm curious, like, what is something concrete that you've changed in how you operate or how you lead a revenue team because of AI, like something you can really point to before and after?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think let me start on the front end of it. The front end is, AI, as simple as this may sound, AI is fantastic at refining and defining your plans into very smart, goal-oriented, racy kind of forms. And so I find that my 100-day plans of today are far more productive than the 100-day plans I did 10, 15, 20 years ago. Why? Because very quickly I can develop, using AI tools, I can develop a goal set on a 100-day plan with timelines, racy charts, so who's responsible, who's all the way through the racy chart. I can easily do that and hold people accountable for it. What I find, and why does it work, is that by developing that quickly, I can spend far more of my time on actually being with the team on execution. So I used to spend so much time developing those plans with the team, or maybe as the parachute in. Now those plans are really, they're sped up, much more efficient, and I can spend far more time with the team really developing and delivering. So where have I seen the results? Well, number one, I've seen better results in terms of traction of those plans in the 100 days. So I'm not seeing as many, boot outs, like changing your times and dates to beyond 100. We'll get to that later. So we're definitely falling within our timelines, much better with better discipline. Secondly, I am getting to spend more time with the talent on the team. That's an area where it's critical in that 100 days. How do you assess the talent? Are they on board? Do they have the skills? Are there changes that they made? So what it's providing me is the ability to get much closer to the talent discussions and coaching or other that takes place in those early days.
I love it. I mean, I see the same thing on the CTO side where AI is completely removing like whole layers of the process, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like I had a before and after moment of how executive reporting is changing in a big, big way, and it's never going to go back. Is there something like that for you on the CRO side?
I think that the part I'm going to go back to something I said already, where I think the biggest difference is when you think about prep and proposal, two really critical parts of my cycle of leadership, right? Is, how do we prep for a strategic meeting? How do we prep? So if you think about, we're going to talk to Walmart, and, gone are the days where you talk a buyer and it's a relationship forever. Oh, forget it. You got to be ready to talk to 7 people. How do you prep for that meeting with 7 people? How do you synthesize it? And then on the back end, you could be talking to buyers from different departments. How do you synthesize yet break out your proposals to be bespoke for that particular buyer? In the old days, forget it. Multiple meetings, forget it. Now we're really able to use AI to make a much better preparatory experience. I'm really prepared. My team's really prepared. And then on the back end, really quickly able to give a synthesized and bespoke proposal out, quotation for what we just talked about. That's a game changer in terms of what their wow factor is for the buyer as they consider, how does it feel? How do we want to use this? How does it fit into our planogram? Or how does it fit into, if it's not a product business, how does it fit into what our strategic framework looks like?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Amazing. I'm curious on the opposite side a little bit. Like, where does it stall, Rich? Like, where do you see AI implementations on the revenue side just like die after that pilot phase? Because I see that constantly on the CTO side, and I'm curious what you're doing to help like push through it.
I think it's about adoption. Usually, it's about critical mass and adoption. So where I see it stalling is if you don't actually pay attention to your adoption plans. Meaning, what? And I always think of it in critical mass. I am not into perfection. I'm not interested. It's not going to happen. So, but I am into critical mass. And so if you've got 10 reps, 10 salespeople that you're working with, how do I get it to be 6 to get started? How do I get at least critical mass of people? Now, if I only have 3 and they're superstars and they're doing great, and I think we've got it done, we don't have it done. But if I get it to 6 that are using it regularly, and I can inch it forward bit by bit afterwards, that's where I see the stickiness. It's when I claim victory, but I haven't gotten there yet, is where I see it falling apart.
Yeah. I love that, because it's so true. I love the concreteness of the number too. You know what I mean? Like 1 or 2 is easy. Getting that critical mass is really, really good. And I think, like, to me, the underlying tone of what you said, especially on this, like with AI and the revenue side, that it isn't about replacing that relationship. It's giving your team that clarity and the bandwidth to show up for those relationships in a better way. Would you agree with that?
Entirely. I just had a client meeting yesterday. Really fun client. I mean, they make it's called Wow Sporting Goods and Big Mouth, and they make this like great towables and fun product that's sold into mostly big box, Amazon as well, but mostly in big box. And we talked about this yesterday, literally in preparation for some big meetings coming up. And it's really all about, this should be preparing you. I think of it like, sorry, I'm a sporty guy, right? So I think of it like, how many reps do you need to do to be comfortable, to be present in the moment? No different than, if you're playing basketball, you better practice your dribbling because you don't want to think about it during the game.
That's
what
right.
AI is doing for the sales team and really preparing them and helping in the preparation for the meetings, they feel so confident that then they could just act. Then they could just be themselves, freely have a conversation because they are very well prepared. And I think that's the biggest, to what I see is one of the great benefits of it doesn't mean anything about reducing the relationship. The relationship is more natural. You're not worried and nervous. Am I going to remember everything? It's like you've prepped. You're ready.
Well, let's pivot over to this leadership last segment of the show here. And honestly, this is the one I'm the most curious about with you, Rich, because you've got this really unique leadership foundation you've built, like you said, in the locker rooms, before boardrooms, D1 lacrosse captain, decades of mentoring athletes and into business leaders. That's not your typical CRO background in my mind. So here's what I'm seeing across the board right now. AI is shifting the power dynamics inside of revenue organizations. The reps who are using it well are pulling far ahead. The
Mhm.
ones that aren't are feeling it. And I see sales leaders are caught in the middle trying to figure out, like, how do I bring everybody along without losing the culture or the trust? So how is your background and leadership style shaping the way you think about leading a team through this dramatic shift?
I'm glad you asked the question because I've thought about this a lot. And I think about it in terms of you and Tech CXO and our firm. You know, I didn't feel comfortable being a leader in a group, whether or not it's a client or with the team, if I wasn't going to walk the walk. And so I have personally invested a lot of time into how am I going to learn, and I don't mean academically, but how am I going to start using AI in a much more meaningful way than I did 2 years ago, a year ago. And so I do think part of it is, as a leader, how do you get comfortable with it yourself? How do you actually walk the walk before you ask? I really I include my team, I include my clients in any of the work that I'm doing. I share with them the tools that I am using. You use Revenue Growth Agent as a perfect example. I
That's
share
right.
it. I use it every day. I literally used it this morning. I've got a big meeting coming up with a prospect, and I used it this morning to prepare for that meeting. I share that with my teams. I share what I do. I built a business plan for 2026 for myself, for our team, for our clients. I use AI a lot when it comes to that, and I share that. So I think from a leadership point of view, I'm not really into directing and pointing. I feel much more comfortable as a leader doing and building the kind of the consensus amongst the group. And I don't need consensus. I'll go back to my critical mass. I don't need consensus. I need critical mass.
That's right.
And I believe that by driving towards critical mass, by leading from out front, I'm much more likely to get people on the team to see the value without feeling threatened, without feeling like, hey, I can't do that because I'm a very normal human. I'm not, like, who is this engineer, this astrophysicist? No,
Right. Yeah.
that is not me. So if I'm using it, pretty much everyone in the room is going to be like, oh, if he can do it, then I can too. And and I believe in that. And I believe that that's effective with a client or with my leverage team of principals and agencies, or with, frankly, my peers at Tech CXL.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing is that the fundamentals haven't really changed, right? It's the same playbook, conditioning and dribbling that we were talking about, conditioning that accountability. AI has changed how fast you can run the plays, though. And I'm curious, like, you and I are blessed to have been pre-AI.
Yeah.
So we have got all this experience here. So like we can run the plays super fast. I wanted to see, like, do you agree that that's resonating? And what do we do about our junior team members that don't have the 30 years of experience you and I are bringing to the table?
Well, that's a great question. I don't even know if I can answer that question. I can tell you my thoughts about speed, though, and to your point. And I'm going to give you an example.
Please.
So we are doing a lot of work with EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and we're doing a lot of work with our clients. We have a lot of clients that use it. And what we're finding is that a lot of our assessment, gap analysis, et cetera, really fits in well with EOS implementers as well as companies. And, I was able to put together research, business plan, 1-pagers, 3-pagers, decks in a matter of a couple of hours,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
it would have taken me head down, long weekend, significantly more time to put this together. Of course, I edit, I review it, of course. So the speed is so true, Brian. I mean, like, the amount of time I save to be able to crank out. Now, I will say that I have kids that work at Accenture, and they're in, 25, 30 years old. And I asked them one day about, do you guys use AI? And they looked at me like, are you kidding me? How would we not use it, right? And
Right. Yeah.
I worry about that a little bit because
Yeah.
they haven't had to kind of muscle through and get banged around to the same
Yeah.
degree to build that kind of rigor and discipline. Now, maybe I'm being a crusty old man saying that, but I do think there is value that we bring, and I think, and I urge them too to get out
Yeah.
there. Don't use it for everything. Make sure your brain is still working. Make sure you're reading. Make sure you're doing other things so that you're not just pressing a button with really clever prompts. It's good to have both, I guess is my answer.
No, I agree. And at least tell them that if they don't have the experience, to set up the devil's advocate to punch holes in it, because you don't want to fall into that hallucination trap or whatever else that you might get to because you don't have the experience, or you don't want to be lazy. Because like I do think there's a level, like it just produced the proposal and everything else you just talked about so fast. Now you've got to spend the time to read it. And I think some of these younger folks might skip over that step of like, did it really make sense before I put it in front of the client? Because you don't want to get caught with that.
I think that is really true. I think that for those of us of a certain vintage, we'll call it, I'm still so paranoid that it won't come out right, that I review it all to make sure, did it say what I wanted it to say? Or what? Well, is there an obvious, hey, I have to research that further, or that doesn't make sense along the way? I agree with you.
And it's interesting because like people and leadership are tied together, right? And I'm personally interviewing for a lot of senior roles right now for my clients, and I can see the shift in my head of I care a lot less about the tech stack that this person's resume has. I care way more about whether they know how to use AI to multiply their output. Are you thinking similarly on the people and the hiring for the revenue teams?
Oh, for sure. That's a much higher weight than I even would have thought of like a couple of years ago. And let's face it, there was still other technology to be thinking about a couple of years ago. So AI is obviously a breakthrough and newer, but for sure it's important. It's an important skill. I do think that from an interviewing point of view, not just from a culling point of view, it's very important to ask good, solid, open-ended questions about how are you using it? Tell me, because what you do find is that everyone's going to put it on a resume. And it's a buzzword that's required now. Because I also am we do a lot of hiring. We do it through our search team at TechCXO, and then I'm very involved in the hiring process.
That's right.
Along the way through it. So I do think that the right questions have to be asked, the right probing and understanding the depth of how are they using it. Kind of what we're going through right now is an interview about how am I using it, and in a similar way for a new candidate, it has to be done that way as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope those of you that are interviewing with Rich and I know that you cannot read the ChatGPT interview answer off the screen. We can tell. So please don't, use it to prep for the interview, but please don't read it while we're asking you these questions. So
that's right.
I'm curious, can you share, I think leadership is led through examples, and I hate to say moments of failure, and you and I have failed plenty in our career, I'm sure. But is there a moment that where a leader or a team that you were working with really turned the corner with AI, and it's like something just clicked for them, and you felt it, and you're like, wow, these guys are going to take off?
Yeah, I would say probably the best example of this is the use of the CRM. And when it came down to it, I've got a client that was, I don't mean resistant at all. I just mean they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to link within the CRM all the AI tools that are at the disposal. And this client that did this basically it's a digital marketing agency. And they do a lot of inbound, not a lot of outbound BDR work, but a lot of inbound. And in that inbound, they were really able to take the kind of early stage discussions about AI, and they were really able to dramatically increase their efficiencies along all these stages of the funnel. So contact qualifications, contact made, meeting, post-meeting, all my world, right? And by doing that, what you saw were very statistically sound and continuous improvement in the number of meetings, the number of close that they need that they're able to get close ones. What happened? They had to grow their business. Good problem to have. A good problem to have. But they really built AI into every stage along the way. It was in their preparation, so the incoming was prepared. It was in their bespoke proposals that we talked about. It was in the updated decks that they were able to create based on the note taker and the AI feeding in. So they used it at every step along the way. That increased the number of meetings from 22-ish a month to 30. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot.
That is.
When you go up to 30 and you're closing, your close rates stay roughly the same, a little bit better, that's a very big increase in your net new business. And that's what they accomplished.
I love it. That was very, very well said. And I want to, I tug on an underlying theme through our chat today is the real insight here that AI doesn't build team culture. It's just revealing whether you had one.
I definitely think it doesn't reveal team culture. I mean, that I agree with entirely. In terms of it revealing if you didn't have one, I'm not sure that I would agree with that. I would think more that what AI does is it really helps you. And I think back to the repetition comment earlier, right, about dribbling a ball, and it really allows your culture to come out because you're spending less time but more productive time, okay, in terms of how do you get really good at your job? How do you get really good at your task? How, as a team, do you improve your handoffs from demand gen to sales to customer success? How do you build culture that's built on those joint experiences, joint sets of data, and joint sets of handoffs? I think it helps with that. I don't think it necessarily means that it was revealed that it wasn't there. I think it's much more of a how does it help you build the culture that you want, because all of those elements where there could be breakdowns are really strengthened.
Rich, I hope we can get you back on the show to go deeper on some of this stuff, because we have ran out of time. So I think there's some really strong framing here. The AI on the revenue side isn't about chasing some shiny tools, but it's about building those systems that let your team perform repeatedly under pressure. And I hope every sales leader and founder watching this podcast hears that reframe right now. So Rich, thank you so much for being here. How do people watching this get in touch? What should we put in the show notes?
Well, sure. Easiest way to get in touch with me is through my email, rich.mackover@techcxo.com. Thank you for the shout out on my LinkedIn. I am pretty active on LinkedIn. So Rich Mackover, Makover. You can find me on LinkedIn, where I try to post as interesting things as I can find. I look forward to talking to anybody. There's a link on there to book an appointment directly with me. So feel free to reach out to me.
Perfect. We are going to make sure all of Rich's links, including his work at TechCXO, and I think your newsletter is called Fractional Edge, right? Are in the show notes. You can click straight through to it. To everybody out there, if this episode gave you a new way to think about how AI fits into your revenue strategy, please pass this along. Share it with a founder, a sales leader, or someone on your team who is navigating through a growth inflection point right now. Please follow this podcast, leave us a review, and check out all the ways to connect with Rich in the show notes. Again, I'm Brian Denstead. You've been listening to AI with Bri. And remember, the future doesn't wait. So learn, leverage, and lead. And we'll see you next week.
This episode of AI with Bri was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstead. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bri and visit ai.bri.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.